Let's go back to our example. We are now at this line here. There are many things happening here, so we will go step by step and we will talk about everything here. So first I will zoom in into this function. Let's have first a general overview of everything what's happening here, and then we will talk about the let keyword. And to talk about the let keyword, we need to talk about variables. So here we see we have this big thing here. So we have a try default, which is a function that returns a new stream and a handle using the default output device. And this function is part of this RODIO create, and this RODIO create has something called the output stream, which is a structure. And we see that this function here is returning two things. So it already makes sense that these two things, what is returning is a handle and a string. And it's returning a tuple. And we will have to talk about tuples later. So we have here this parentheses with things inside. So we have some names. We name the stream, and then we have that this stream is an output stream, and we have this handle, this name handle, and this handle is an output stream handle, and they come from the result of this try default function that returns a new stream and a handle. And here we have this keyword let. So let's take a look of what is this keyword let. So the keyword let binds a value to a variable. The primary use for the let keyword is in let statements, which are used to introduce a new set of variables into the current scope as given by a pattern. So here we have some examples. We have let, the keyword let, then there is a name here. This name is thing1, then we have this symbol here, and then we have the type. So we're saying that this thing1 is from the type integer 32, and we are binding a value 100 to this thing. In this other example here, we are saying we're having this thing2, and this thing2 will be equal to the result of 200 plus the value of thing1. So we see that the keyword let binds a value to a variable. But what is a variable? So variable is a component of a stack frame. It could be either a named function parameter, an anonymous temporary, or a named local variable. A local variable or a stack local allocation holds a value directly allocated within the stack's memory, and the value is part of the stack frame. One thing in Rust is that local variables are immutable unless declared otherwise. And we see here that we can use this mute to make this variable mutable. What do we mean by mutable and immutable? So when a variable is immutable, once a value is bound to a name, you can't change the value. So for example, we see here we have a function main. We are having this let x equals to 5, so we are binding this value 5 to x, and we didn't declare as a mutable. So when we try to change this variable x to be 6, you should receive error messages because this variable x is immutable. But now if we declare it as a mutable variable, so let mut x equals to 5, then we are printing the value of x, then we're changing the value of x, then we're printing, and now it compiles and we print the correct results. So this is very important to understand in Rust, that variables, they are used to store values, and by default they are immutable unless you declare them to be mutable. And we use the let keyword to bind a value to a variable. In a simple way to explain, we can see a variable as a named storage that programs can manipulate. So variables help programs to store values. And variables in Rust are associated with a specific data type. And this data type determines the size and the layout of the variable's memory, the range of values that it can be stored within that memory, and the set of operations that can be performed on the variable. Here again, some ways how we can declare a variable. So this is the syntax. The data type is optional when we declare a variable, and the data type is inferred from the value associated to the variable. So if we don't declare, if we don't declare the type, the data type is going to be inferred. So here we see we're using the keyword let, some name and a variable. Here we are not specifying any type, and here we have the let, the variable name, the data type. So here we are specifying the type. And we see here an example without the type specified, and here we are specifying the float 64 to the variable salary. Again, talking about mutable and immutable, by default they are immutable. To make them mutable, we have another keyword which is mute, and now we are declaring a mutable variable. And with this mutable variable, we can change the name, the value of this variable, as we are showing in this example here. We have let mutable fees integer 32 is equal to 25, and then we're changing here, and we can print, and first fees 25,000 and fees change to 35,000. In our example here, we will have this name stream, we have this name handle, then we have that the stream is an output stream, handle is an output string handle, and they come from what this function try default that returns a new stream and handle using the default output device. And we'll see that later on we can use these variables. For example, here we are using this handle that we got from here. And just to understand a bit more, suppose I change this name here. Now I try to run. So I have an error. Cannot find value handle in the scope. So here we are using this handle, but the handle cannot be found in the scope. But if we go back here and we run, now our program compiles, it runs everything, and we're playing this sound from this file here. So this time we've seen the keyword let that binds a value to a variable. We've seen that variables, they are used by programs to store values. The definition of variables, it's a bit much more complicated than this simplified explanation. It has to do with the stack frame, has to do with memory addresses, but we will get more in that with time. We see that variables, they are by default immutable, but we can make them mutable using a special keyword mute. We can define variables with their type, and if we don't give the type is optional, but the type will be inferred by the value. And if we try to change a variable that is immutable, we will receive error messages regarding immutability errors. So that's it for this tutorial. Next time, first we saw today the let keyword, that we had to talk about variables to talk about the let keyword, and now we'll talk also about tuples as we have these parentheses here, and it's very important to understand that we can have this collection of different types inside the parentheses, and we will talk about tuples next time.